Am I the asshole for not letting my matron of honor hold her baby during my wedding ceremony? I am getting married at the end of July. My sister, 29, is my matron of honor and she's currently pregnant with her 4th child. Her due date is a few weeks before my wedding and I could not be more excited to meet my new nephew. However, she has been making some comments that are a bit worrying to me. She has repeatedly told me that she's going to hold her new baby as she walks down the aisle, regardless of my thoughts, despite the fact that her husband will be at the wedding and able to hold the baby. She plans to hold her baby during the ceremony and even feed him if she needs to. This is not a long Catholic wedding ceremony, just a regular old cutesy outdoor wedding, probably 20 minutes long. I told her she should feel welcome to have her new little baby with her during the day while we are getting ready, but when it comes down to walking the aisle, I would not like her to be holding the baby. The baby could cry, poop, need to eat, etc. And she has insisted that she'll be holding her baby during the wedding, otherwise she will not be in the wedding. My sister has insisted that she will be holding her baby during the wedding, otherwise she won't be attending. In addition to the baby holding dilemma, she has jokingly told me that she will call me a bad.
This is why you should always tell the truth. Once a young man moved into a new apartment, and there he saw something unbelievably terrifying. Let's just call him James. When James moved in, he got in the elevator and a beautiful woman stepped in after him. They had a great conversation and got off on the same floor. Then James realized that she was his new neighbor. He was so happy about this, but he could have never imagined the horrifying events that are about to happen. He unpacked some of his things and noticed a hole in the wall. He looked through it and realized that he can see his neighbor's room. He watched as she changed and got ready for bed, and soon this became his new habit. But one night things went from creepy to just horrifying. In the middle of the night, James heard loud groaning noises, so he looked into the hole in the wall again. There he saw his neighbor being attacked by a tall man with a dark beard, thin nose and a scar on his cheek. James saw exactly what the attacker looked like, but the next day when police came to investigate his neighbor's unfortunate passing, James said nothing. He was afraid he'd get caught for spying on his neighbor before, but he would never know what this lie would cost him. Follow for part 2.
Part 3 of how my boyfriend broke up with me to marry my mother. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So one day my boyfriend breaks up with me and tells me that I should move out. And when I asked him why, he said that him and my mother fell in love. But since I was already suspecting something, it didn't really surprise me. But of course I was still devastated. That's when he asked me if I could move out that same night. Mind you, I don't have any money or even a place to go to. That's when I run over to my mom's room and guess what? She had locked herself inside. The coward didn't even want to face her own daughter. He told me that the best thing for everyone was for me to move out and that she knew I could get back up on my feet. So I grabbed some of my stuff and I went over to my best friend's house. My best friend invited me to live with her, thank God. A few weeks later, my mom invites me to her wedding with my boyfriend, or ex I should say. Last I heard, she's doing OnlyFans and my ex is living off of her. I have a better job, I'm thriving and have...
This is why you should be careful doing private events as a stripper. I worked as a dancer for a few years. Most nights I worked at the club, but sometimes I did private events to make some extra money. I always took one of the bouncers that I knew from the club as my bodyguard and gave him a cut of what I made. I also only agreed to small events with a max of 10 to 15 people. One day a guy called me and booked me for a small birthday party for his brother. I explained the rules. No touching or grabbing, nothing sexual would be happening, and I only do what I'm comfortable with, to which he said he understood. I picked up my bouncer friend Tank and headed out to the event. When we arrived, we immediately noticed it was a huge party of at least 60 to 70 people, all of them being men. Tank asked me if I was still comfortable dancing for the party, and I agreed since we were already there. The group of men were really loud when I walked in, and they were extremely intoxicated, which was the first red flag. A few guys instantly started touching me, and Tank lightly pushed them away, telling them no touching and that the show hasn't started yet. While we were walking to the bathroom to change, another guy grabbed my butt. Tank pushed him off and started arguing with him. At this point, we should have left, and if I knew what was about to go down, we would.
I was 21 when I found out I was pregnant with twin girls. My sister is 28 and has had 14 miscarriages. She's only had one successful pregnancy, which resulted in my 4-year-old niece. I'm not against having kids, but I definitely wanted to wait until I graduated with my degree and I was married to my significant other. From the start, my mom has been saying I should give my babies to my sister since she deserves them more than I do. And my sister completely agrees. I told them hell no, and my mom calls me a selfish bitch. Throughout my pregnancy, my sister has been begging me to give her at least one baby since I'm having 2. The last time I saw her, we were having lunch and she started babbling about keeping one of my babies, so I paid for my meal and left and haven't seen any of them since then. After I have my girls, I log on to Facebook to hundreds of threatening messages from my family and friends about how I stole my sister's babies and ruined her life. She posted a picture of her nursery that she had for my babies. There's so many posts about how generous I am for going through the pregnancy and giving my sister the babies. She told everyone I was giving her my babies, and she has my pictures of them in the NICU saying how she can't wait to bring them home. My future mother-in-law is the absolute worst person I've ever met in my life. I'm 30 years old and my boyfriend is 31 and we've been together for 8 months. He's the sweetest and most caring man I've ever met in my life, but the biggest surprise is when I met his mother. I'm a natural redhead, so when we sat down for dinner, she asked me if my parents had the same color hair. And then she proceeds to ask me, does the carpet match the drapes? I looked over to my boyfriend who seemed equally as shocked, but he didn't say anything. And when I didn't respond back, she said, don't worry, I'll ask my son about it later. She then went on to attack my appearance and said my hair was too curly and I really needed to learn how to run a brush through my hair and think about my appearance more when I'm out with her son. And when I lost my appetite, she told me it was a good thing that I'm watching what I eat because it would be a shame if I got any bigger. This was my first meeting with this woman, and as soon as I got into my car, I burst into tears until I got home. I told my boyfriend I needed some time. He went into apology overload, and this started by sending me flowers to my office every day and leaving me messages. He said he spoke with his mom and promised this would never happen again. With this reassurance, I decided to give it another chance.
Story of the time my neighbor tried to pierce my belly button when I was 8. So you guys know an awful lot about, my neighbor's situation. She was known as the bully of our street. So anyway, one day she's like, okay, we're gonna play kickball. And I hated playing kickball because you know what kickball was to her? Having me stand behind a tree while she kicked the ball at me, repeatedly. And you know why I had to stand behind a tree? So that neither of our parents would be able to see what she was doing. So obviously I was like, no, I don't want to play kickball. And she was like, we'll either play kickball or we'll play house. And I was like, okay, let's play house. So we go up to her room unsupervised with the door closed. And she pulls out her toenail clipper. And she tells me to pull up my shirt. I was like, absolutely not until you tell me what you're doing with that toenail clipper in your hand. She started convincing me that it wouldn't hurt and that it'll be a pretty belly ring when we're done. And I didn't know what a belly ring was. And she said an earring for your belly button. So I was like, oh, okay, word. Didn't go home with a belly ring.
My husband and I have 2.5 kids. My oldest is 10 years old, my middle child is 5, and I'm currently 5 months pregnant. My 10-year-old is from a previous relationship, and my 5-year-old is adopted. My sister got pregnant unexpectedly, saw adoption as her only choice, and didn't want the baby to go to strangers, so I stepped up. We did everything right. My sister went to therapy to consult on her choice, and I went with her to make sure she was sure. And we did everything that was recommended for adoptive mothers/birth mothers along the way. It wasn't an immediate adoption. I got guardianship, and we built to an adoption, and my sister was involved in the entire process. And again, never expressed any issues in the time it took to finalize. Just over a month ago, I announced my pregnancy. My 5-year-old knows about the biological relationship between her and my sister. Shortly after telling people about the pregnancy, my sister and I arranged to meet up in person in the park. She then told my 5-year-old to give mommy a hug, and my 5-year-old immediately grabbed me and my sister got shitty about it. I asked her what she was trying to do, and she said that I had a baby on the way and assumed that I was done with the 5-year-old and was going to have a new favorite. I said I don't play favorites and don't know what game she's playing. I just found out that my best friend who is 21 has been sleeping with my dad who is 45 for years, and now my mom and siblings hate me because they think I destroyed our family. It all started when I discovered that my dad had a lot of sketches of my best friend naked. He also had a lot of photos of her. I confronted him and he just told me that he was in love with her but that nothing had ever happened between them. I talked to my friend and she swore to me that she only loved him as a father and that she would never think of him as a man to flirt with. And I believed her because I thought she was in a relationship. I mean, she used to have a boyfriend and then he moved to another country to study, so they had a long distance relationship, but apparently they broke up a few months after he moved. But she made me believe that they were still together and that they were going to get married when he came back. But I found out that it was all a lie. I went to her apartment and saw that my dad's wallet was on one of the shelves, and I asked her what his wallet was doing there, and she told me that he went there to talk about me. I believed her again, but then I asked her if I could stay in her apartment for the night and she said no. She was extremely nervous telling me no, so when I went home, I sent an Instagram message to her supposed boyfriend and he told me